Hi, Steve Gale here. In this video, we're going to look at changing and updating records using PHP. And what we're going to be doing is looking at the setpoint table within the Industry4 database. So if we have a look at our setpoint table, you can see here the table structure is here. So we've got create table setpoints version 3. We've got an ID field, which is our primary key, and it's set to auto increment primary key. We've got IoT sensor location, which is a varchar 20, and that's the location of our sensor. Then we've got the type of measurement that we're dealing with, and that's a varchar 16. Then we've got the actual set point value, and that's a varchar 8. We've got the deadband around the set point for any control action to be taken or not taken based on the set point value, and the deadband is a varchar 8. And then we've got the date that the actual set point has been created as set date. So in this first piece of code here, what we're doing is we're just going to display the set points in a tabular format. So we've got our server name, in this case is localhost. The user that we're using is i40, and the i40 user has permissions to run select queries, insert queries, update and delete queries on the database, which is the Industry4 DB, and the username is, the password is password1. So first of all, what we're going to do is create a connection. So we're going to connect to localhost, username i40, password here, and the database Industry4 DB, and we've got our connection object. And if there's no connection, then we're just going to quit out of this PHP. Now this is commented out, but this is basically the prototype of the set points table. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a select query, select star from SetpointV3. So we're going to basically select all of the data from the SetpointV3 table. And then what we're going to do is we're going to echo our table structure. So we've got table ID, we'll call it ID equals results. And we've got first table row, and our headers are going to be ID, IoT sensor location, measurement, set point, deadband, and set date. So we've basically got a table column for each of these column values in the set points table. So we'll just this is basically our header, our table header, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the result that comes back from this query when we run the query against the connection. So we run the select query against the connection using MySQL query, and that will generate a result set which should match all of the records that are contained within the set points table. So what we want to do first of all is check to see whether the result set is not empty. And if it's not empty, what we're going to do is we're going to use MySQL fetch associative, and we're going to get the result. And MySQL fetch associative, what it does is it returns an associative array. So $row will be an associative array of the first record in the that's returned in the result set. And we can iterate through that by saying while $row equals MySQL fetch associative array. And this while loop will iterate through all of the records that are returned in the result set from the SQL query select star from set points. So if there's only one record returned, then the while loop will only execute once, because if this is false or $row is empty, then the while loop will terminate. So this will iterate through for as many rows as we have in the result set that gets returned. And what we're doing here is we're just setting up a table row for each record, and then table data for each field that comes back in each record. So we've got the ID field, the IoT sensor location field, the measurement field, the set point field, the deadband field, and the set date field, which matches obviously the structure of our table because we did a select star. So we're returning all of the columns or all of the fields, and these are put into individual table data points. So TD, each one of these becomes a TD or table data. And then finally, we close the table row. And this while loop will iterate, so it'll write out as many rows as we have data points in the result set or the record set. And if we don't have any results come back in the result set, if the result set is or almost calling number of rows is empty or is not greater than 0, then we'll just put out 0 results. So we can run that. Let's go and run that. I'm running this in WAMP server, and it's located in this folder here, V4. So this was table set point display, and we should only have one data point because there's only one data point in the set point table at the moment. So you can see here what it's done is it's printed out this is our table header. We've got IoT. I'll just move that across to here and put this on this side and then bring that back. So we've got ID, IoT sensor location, measurement, set point, deadband, and set date. So they're all that's our table headers. And then we've only got one iteration here because we've only got one data point. ID equals 1. This is our IoT sensor location. That's our measurement type. That's the set point. That's the deadband, and that's the set date. In the next example, what we're going to do, if we have a look at the next example, table 2 set point, what we're going to do is basically add the ability to change a set point. So we've basically got pretty much the same code. We set up our variables for our connection. We make our connection. Then we run select star from set points. We run the query. We set up the table header, and basically the same code where we're iterating through the result set, and we're writing out our table of all of the data that gets retrieved from each field within each record. But in addition to that, what we're going to do is we're going to write out 2 more sections here. And what we're going to do is we're going to have an anchor tag, and we're going to call change set point. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass the ID field here, the row ID, as a parameter, ID equals, and whatever that value is. And the link we're going to create is change. And we're going to do another one here, the same thing, which is going to be remove set point confirmation. So if we want to remove a set point, then we've got the same thing. So we've got the ID. The ID is a parameter to the request. This will be a get request, and the ID value. So this is the key, and this is the value. So that's the key value pair, which is encoded into the URL, and then the link for that will be remove. So we've got change and we've got remove. So it's basically the same code. So let's have a look at that here. So we go back and we run this one. You can see we've got pretty much the same thing. We've still got only our one entry here, but we've also got this change and remove. If we do a view page source on here, you can see here that this is our href equals change setpoint.php. Now the ID is equal to 1, and the remove, the ID is equal to 1. And that's because that is the ID here of this particular record. So if we had multiple records returned in the result set, in other words, we had multiple set points, the next one would be ID equals 2. And when we hovered over the change, the next one would have a 2 in the ID field, and it would have a 2 in the ID equals field. So if we have a look at the code that we would write for change set point, what we can do is we can pick up the ID number, and then we know which set point we're wanting to change the value for. Or if we want to remove a set point, we've got the ID field of the ID number here of the set point that we want to remove. Now, because these IDs are key value pairs encoded into the URL, we would use a get. This is going to generate a get request, and we'd use PHP get to actually get the value of the ID, and then we'd be able to process it. Next, what we'll look at is the code for change set point. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and have a look at change set point. So with change set point, we know that we're going to get, it's a get request, and we need to get the ID field, and then we can use that ID field to run a query on the database based on the ID number of the set point that we want to change. So here we've set up our connection variables. We create the connection object. Here what we're doing is we're going to just wrap this ID, because we're going to get the ID, but we're going to wrap it in MySQL by real escape string and HTML special characters, just to filter out any potential garbage that might be injected into this this PHP page from a malicious source. And we're going to get that ID, so we're going to use _get to get the value of the ID which was passed in the request, and we'll return this into the ID variable. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a prepared statement again, so we can mitigate any potential SQL injection attacks. We're going to do a select star from SetpointV3 where the ID equals, and we're going to use this ID here. So when we bind the parameter, we're going to bind the ID. Now the ID is numeric, so we specify a D in here because it's a numeric ID, and then we can execute the statement. So if we go back to that previous example that we were looking at here, you can see here that change set point, the ID is equal to 1. So the key value pair that gets passed to the get request, ID is the key, the value is equal to 1. So when we pick this up in the code, we would expect the query to be select star from SetpointV3 where ID equals 1. So that's from the get request. So what we're going to do is we're going to return that result, and then what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through the array that's returned. So while MySQL fetch result, we're going to get again an associative array. So this will return each record as an associative array called $O. And then what we can do is we can index into the ID, the sensor location, the measurement, the set point, the deadband, and the set date. We know the ID will be equal to 1 because essentially it should be the same as here, because we've said where ID equals 1. So the value that gets returned will only have an ID of, or the values that get returned will only have an ID of equal to 1. Hopefully they're unique, and there's only one of them. And we're going to set these PHP variables with the values that get returned. The next thing we can do is we can create a form, and we're going to make the action of the form change set point confirmation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to populate this form with the values that we've retrieved from the database table for this particular record of ID equals 1. So here we've got input type equals text, name equals IoT sensor location. The value that we assign to it, we actually use the value of the IoT sensor location variable. And similarly, we do this for measurement. So we've got the name equals measurement, and the value that gets assigned to it is the value of the measurement that gets returned from the query. Then we do the same for the set point, the deadband, and then we put a submit button on the end. The other thing we do here is we use a hidden field, input type equals hidden, which is like another input, except it just doesn't get displayed. Size and name equals ID, and the value is the ID. And then what we can do is we can pass this to change set point confirmation and method equals post. So change set point confirmation can pick up the values that are populated in this form, and when we submit that, those values will be sent to change set point confirmation. So let's have a look at this in operation. So we'll go into here and we'll go back to here and we'll hit change. So we'll change this. What we're going to do is we're going to change this particular entry. So we'll hit change, and you can see here what it's done is it's populated the value of IoT sensor location, the value of the measurement, the value of the set point, and the value of the deadband. So if we go back, you can see we've got set points 20.1, deadband 2.2. And if we do a view source, you can see here that we've got these values have been populated. So these values here were populated out of that SQL select query where the ID was equal to 1. And you can see our hidden field at the top here. So the hidden field you can see in the view source, but you don't see the hidden field in the being displayed in here. So what we can do is we can change the set point value. Let's make it 20.9. Let's make the deadband, I don't know, 2.5. And when we submit this form, if we go into the view source, you can see when we submit this form, the change set point confirmation.php will be posting these values to change set point confirmation.php. So let's submit the form and we get record updated. So we hope that the record's been updated. But let's have a look at how change set point confirmation actually achieves that. So have a look at change set point confirmation. Here we've got our connection variables. We create the connection. We're getting these variables being posted. So we've got the ID is being posted, the IoT sensor location, the measurement, the set point, and the deadband is coming from that form that we just looked at. So if we go back to the form, you can see here that we've got, go back here, view page source. We've got IoT sensor location, measurement, set point, deadband, and ID are all of our names. So we can pick those up using the post variables, and method was equal to post. So we can pick all of these things up as our post variables. Again, we need to wrap these in MySQL escape string and HTML special characters to get rid of any potential injection attacks or other sort of attacks on our post variables. And we pick these up in these various PHP variables here. So ID, IoT sensor location, measurement, set point, and deadband. Then what we're going to do is going to run an update query. So we're going to update SetpointsV3, and we're going to set the IoT sensor location, the measurement, the set point, the deadband, but we're not going to set the set date. We're going to make the set date equal to now, because if we're modifying a set point, obviously the set date needs to be changed to the modified date. So we'll set that to now, and we're going where ID equals and a parameter. So if we look at these parameters in the bind param, we've got IoT sensor location gets bound to this one, measurement gets bound to this one, set point gets bound to this one, deadband gets bound to this one, and ID gets bound to the last one there. If we look at the data types, we've got string, 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 but the last one is decimal. ID is a decimal. So these measurements and set points are still being used in strings. And then this will bind these parameters to the update statement, so it'll mitigate against potential SQL injection attacks by using a prepared statement. And then we execute the statement, and hopefully our record had been updated. So let's go back and have a look and see if that worked. So the way we can see if it worked is we put the values of, what values did we put in? 20.9 and 2.5. So if we go back, now we did submit this, didn't we? Well, let's make it 2.9 and 29, so it's really clear. Submit that, record updated. So let's just go back, and do a few here. And you can see here we've got 29 and 2.9. So in fact, those values were actually updated by the change there. Thanks for watching.